Today we are looking at chemistry. That is a topic, or as a topic known as chemical equation. So when we are talking of chemical equation, we have some of the several things that we consider. So first of all, a chemical equation, this is the representation of a chemical reaction by means of chemical symbols and the formula. So we are using the chemical formula and chemical symbols to represent elements. That is what we call a chemical equation. So for instance, a chemical formula for hydrochloric acid is HCl. For oxygen is O. Then we have a 2 at the bottom of that O. So that is the example of a chemical formula. So we have different formulas that are used to express this chemical equation. So these chemical formulas are the ones that are used to write chemical equation. Remember, we have two formats or two forms: chemical equation and a word equation. Whereby chemical equation we are using the symbols and the chemical symbols, that is, and the formulas. But when we are talking about word equation, for example, if we have told you write a word equation, you just write directly. For example, like hydrochloric acid, you just use the word hydrochloric acid. But when we are talking of a chemical equation, you use HCl as the chemical symbol of the chemical formula. So next we move at the key features of chemical equations. What are some of the things that we have to consider when we are dealing with chemical equation? So the first one, the correct formula of the reactions are on the left of the equation. So we have to come up with the correct formula. You come up with the correct formula for you to come up with the correct what? To come up with the correct chemical equation. Then the correct formula of the products on the right of the equation. So remember, when you are writing chemical equation, we have the product side and we have the resultant side. So we have elements that we react so that we can get the product. So on this side, we write the elements that are reacting. And then on the right side, we write elements or the products that have been produced. So on the left hand side, we write elements that are reacting using the correct formula. And then on the other side, we also put the elements on the other side, but now they will be the end products, or they will be the products of the reactants. So come up with the correct formula of this element. And then after that, you arrange them systematically. Then after you have written this equation, make sure it's balanced. It is balanced. For example, we have two oxygen on this side. You also have to ensure that if oxygen occurs on the other side, you have to have two oxygen on the other side also. Then the reactants and the products are separated by the arrow pointing to the right. So this side we have the reactant, then the other side we have the product. Then they are separated by an arrow that shows that the other end, or the right side of the equation, that is the product, and the product comes from the reactants. Yes. Then the state symbols of the reactants and the products must be stated as subscripts to the right of the symbol. The state symbols of the reactants and products must be stated. You have to state the state symbol. For example, like HCl. For example, we have H2O. H2 is liquid. HCl is aqueous, that is, hydrochloric acid is aqueous. When we are talking of zinc, zinc is a solid. So the state, we have only three states: solid, liquid, and gas. Also, though we also have vapor, but vapor is a form of, it's just like a form of what? Form of gas. So for example, we have an example of an equation: copper plus oxygen. That is, we get copper 2 oxide. The chemical equation, that is the word equation. When we are talking of the chemical equation, we have Cu, that is capital U, you have plus oxygen 2 separated by the arrow, then 2CO, 2CuO, whereby the reactant and the reactant side and the product side, whereby we have copper is a solid, oxygen is a gas, then the product we get copper 2 oxide, that is 2 copper 2 oxide, that is what? A solid. So when balancing equation, we have to look at the both products on each of the sides. You don't have just to start balancing. You have to highlight the elements using individual symbols. For example, like if you have HCl, we have two elements that form this product. We have the hydrogen and the chlorine, the chloride element in that HCl. So we have to highlight the hydrogen, then followed by the chlorine compound. Then from there, you can now start counting. You look at the reactant side and the product side and you compare. If the number is not equal, that means that you need to balance. For example, if we are reacting copper and oxygen, so we have Cu then plus O2, whereby we get copper 2 oxide. So we find that on this side we have 2 oxygen, and on the other side, on the product side, we have 1 oxygen. So what we do here, we have to put 2 on the copper side, then on the product side we have to put 2 to be general, so that we can have 2 copper, 2 oxygen. Then on the product, on the reactant side, we also have 2 what? Copper, because already we have been told there down that oxygen is O2 and it's what? It's a gas. So those are some of the facts that you have to consider when balancing chemical equation. So when we are talking of chemical equation, we have to come up with the correct formula or symbols of this element for you to be able to write the correct chemical equation. Then apart from that, you also have to know the simple state. When we are talking of simple state, we have gaseous state, we have solid state, and we have the liquid state. Then also we have the aqueous the aqueous state. So you need to know the elements. For example, if you are told of zinc is a solid. When we are talking of water is a liquid. When we are talking of HCl is an aqueous substance, or is a substance that is an aqueous form. So that's all about chemical equation. So just put the simple instructions in mind and all will be well.